Hi, everybody. Let me know when you can see me, and of course, indeed, hear me. Is anybody out there? Let's see if anybody joins. Hello, Susan Tish. Hello, Linda. Bravo, England. Yeah, well, we did very well last night. Yes, it was. Well, funny enough, I thought I was going to be watching it last night, but I couldn't because of the territories with FIFA. They're so controlling of where you can watch it. I couldn't actually watch it. I ended up listening to it, but not in English, in German. So I listened to the entire match with German commentary on, which was interesting to say the least. Hope we are all well. Lovely evening here in Germany. Some finished fabulous flower pots. Weren't they fun, the flower pots? I was so pleased with that. It was such a shame that I couldn't be live, with the 4G and everything, which hopefully this will be okay tonight. Weirdly, Facebook has been like kind of really wobbly every time I just do like little Facebook things. It's been awful. But hello, Michael from Siegburg. Now tell me, Michael, because I don't know where that is. Michaela, sorry, Deaning. Sorry, Michael. It's Michaela, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, I'm reading it properly now. How far away is that then from where we are in North Rhine-Westphalia, near Aachen? Hello, how are you? Marlene's here to add to a burgeoning property portfolio. Trisha's here. Yeah, sorry, Michaela, I do apologise. I was reading. I read Michael and it stopped, but it's white on a very pale screen, so I do apologise for that. No offence intended. Do let me know. Have you been to Monschau? And is that the right way to pronounce it? So do let me know. All of this and more. So in the grand tradition of what Stefan would say, this is kind of more of a tourist tour. I've got some material. I've done a bit of research. I wouldn't just go around just pointing at things and saying, that's nice. But I haven't got the same depth of research and perception as I would if I was kind of on home ground. So hopefully you'll bear with me on that. Between Bonn and Bonn's great, isn't it? Bonn's got the Beethoven House. That's something to go and visit if you're ever in that area. Catherine B, happy birthday, Catherine B. Sketchers. Lovely to have you on. Happy to be. Hopefully this will top of happy days. Get Sketchpad ready. It is absolutely lovely. I think you're going to enjoy it a great deal. Has anybody been? I know Pat Rush was saying that she'd been prior, but has anybody else been? So Michaela's been there a few times, so she'll know, and hopefully will put me right if I'm talking rubbish. And just let me know, by the way, volume-wise, are we okay with all that goes with it? Nice and clear, hopefully, all coming through. The church bells are chiming 9, so it would be remiss of me not to kick on. But I'll just if somebody could just tell me that it's all nice and clear, we've got no buffering, and sound. I'm in 1080. I could push it down to 720, but if I can push it on 1080, I'm much for it. It's better for everyone. So I'm not hearing any problems. So okay, let us push on. So let me just get this. Oh, I stood up. My knees are fighting it. It's a lot of stairs to get up, so I'll just orientate. That's a bit better. Rightio, goodo. Svelbrucken. Not sure when to Monschau. Oh, okay, Malia. Right, so here we are. Let's give you a flip, as you might say. So, pardon the pun. And this is because they have exhibitions, concerts up here. The view we can see a lot more. We're going to go down, but I wanted to start with us up in the castle. So I'm going to give us a bit of a panorama up here, just so you can kind of see. It is unusually fine. Hi, Elizabeth. Lovely to have you on as ever. And great buildings. I mean, this is a building. This is a town of buildings. It's going to blow you away. Just sit where you are. You're not going to take your eyes off the screen. Let me just kind of pan around. So you see the curtain walls. So this really was a kind of fortress that was built to control a valley. So Monschau's castle sits kind of right above the town, and we'll get some fabulous perspectives. We're just a bit kind of far out here. Oh, maybe take you down here. I can probably give you a slightly better view down to town, and then a bit like Knaresborough, it'll kind of reveal itself. Over time, it's kind of one of those sort of places. But get this for a town in a valley, so you can see. Obviously, we've got the forested areas above, and then nestled right in the bottom of the valley, we've got this beautiful, unspoilt medieval town. Hello, Ronnie, in Monschau. It's called Montjoly, by the way, a mountain joy for most of its life. But towards the very end of the First World War, a general decided to rename it Monschau to make it sound more German, because to try to get morale, like a futile gesture towards the end of the war. But consequently, it changed. But it was a mountain's joy. You kind of get that sense, can't you? Really, it's a lovely thing to call it. So a beautiful evening up here. So quiet. And so it was built to kind of control the valley, kind of watching the valley as it has done for almost 800 years now. So the first fortification was built here in the 13th century. But then it wasn't a kind of a postcard pretty place. It was more of a strategic choke point, if you know what I mean. In terms of what you've got is a kind of real narrow valley, a fast river, steep slopes, which is perfect terrain actually if you want to control movement, trade, and taxation. Really important part in history. You know, so much of our structures and places, you know, mouths of rivers, you know, ports, harbours, are places where you can stop people, what they're doing, find out what they're doing, get them to kind of pay up. So interesting to valleys and so forth. So it's the architecture of financial control. So the early lords of kind of Mountjoy built the first castle as a kind of fortified manor, but it soon grew into, look at this fabulous house up here, it soon grew into a kind of proper stronghold. And you've got really, really thick walls. I mean, obviously this is quite possibly kind of put up later, but even so it just gives you a sense really of quite how deep and thick. As we go down, you'll see the buttresses on these walls. It just kind of gives a little wander around. But as I say, I think they have concerts here. This is why if you look up, there's that kind of infrastructure, you know, for lighting rigs and sound. And so what a fabulous spot it would be to come and have, whether it's a, I don't know, classical concert, a pop concert, whatever. But what a spot to have it. So you've got these thick curtain walls here. You've got a keep at the centre of it, which is, have a look at this as we go onto the keep. Isn't it beautiful? I'd imagine Marlene is salivating as we speak. All gets a bit too much for Marlene at times with the beauty. But this is in England, of course. We're in Germany today. Unusually for my first ever tour in Germany. So I'm breaking my German cherry. But isn't it just magnificent? So you sort of get a sense of how the builders have used the landscape to form the armour, to kind of form the defences. And of course that goes right the way back into when the Romans, you know, were settling, you know, across, northwestern Europe. You know, they're taking advantage of the topography, of landscape, of natural promontories, places where it's easy to put a fort. And then of course, if you look around you, you've got the woodland. So long before this is a stone castle, it's going to be a fort made of wood, isn't it? Yeah. So you've got all the facilities that you need to build. And then once you've built something like this, you've got an opportunity to defend, which is fabulous. Just going to have a glass of water because it's been very, very hot today. And say, consequently, my voice is already getting a bit croaky and I've got a lot of touring to do. So hope you're enjoying it so far. We're going to wind our way down from the top of the castle to the bottom of the town, so down that valley. There'll be plenty of opportunities to take a peek at the view as we go, but I'm going to go real slowly. So in the Middle Ages, Monschau wasn't a kind of quiet valley. It was a frontier lordship sitting between powerful and often competing territories. So the castle above the town was built between 1190 and 1217 by the Dukes of Limburg, who needed a stronger fortress after giving their older, weaker stronghold at a place called Reichenstein. I have no idea what that is. I had to Google it and look it up, but apparently that is the case. And there's Mrs. John over there, the eagle-eyed little spotter, and bless her, with a dodgy knee, it's taken her a while to get up, but she's doing really well. So at some point, by the time we get to the bottom, she may be by my side, but we'll leave her up here to have a little rest while we just have a look at the rest of the castle. And there's a lot of stairs like Whitby, so getting up here is not for the faint-hearted, but of course it's always worth it. So the Monschau castle, was defended to hold and defend what they called the Landkonsen, a block of territory north of the Ruhr. Now this isn't the Ruhr Valley you might have heard of. It's not R-U-H-R, it's Ruhr, R-U-R. Michaela, if I pronounce that wrong, do let me know. But I did sort of Google it to try and find out how to pronounce it. But I made that mistake. I thought, oh, is it the Ruhr Valley? That's in place known for coal, you know, and industry and this and that. But it's not. It's Ruhr, R-U-R. We're in northwest Rhine-Westphalia. Is that how you call it? Anyway, more of an agricultural rather than industrial area. So it was designed to develop this territory north of the Ruhr, where the Limburgers were trying to detach themselves from direct royal control. So it's kind of breakaway, really. You can sort of see how, building this sort of place is a pretty effective way of saying, from now on, we're kind of doing our own thing. Otherwise, you have to come up here, you have to take it off us, which is kind of easier said than done. I mean, it really is a fortification. So the kind of castle was an instrument in a land grab. And you can see, go back to the fortifications here, we've got the arrow holes up here, but the whole thing is just so solid. So again, just panning around so we can get a sense of the depth of these walls. A bit shaky camera, apologies. You know, this is not something that you're going to penetrate. If I come down here, we'll have a look at the arrow slits. Again, defensive formations going right the way down in the valley. Can't see much of the weeds, but I dare say they'd have been kept down in the day. But let me just spin you around. Look at that. At the front. That's something. So yes, it's a land grab, sort of fortified statement that this valley and the high plateau above it now belong to the Lords of Montjoy. So you can, if you don't like that, well, come and do something about it. What are you going to do? So by the mid-13th century, Monschau's lordship was merged with that of Valkenburg, creating this kind of shared Monschau-Valkenburg empire that stretched across what's now kind of German-Dutch border region. I was chatting to a really nice Dutch guy, actually, up here. He was up on his bike, fit lad cycling up here. But he's very interesting. He's my latest subscriber, so if you're on, hello to you. And now if you just see across the way there, I'll just try and get a little bit of zoom on this. You'll see it's actually the ruins of another castle. So sort of so good it did two castles to defend it. I mean, this is the kind of value of it. Hello there, Colin. So, you know, we've kind of got two fortified. So they really were kind of taking this very, very seriously, how they were going to kind of maintain this area as their own. Let me just give you another view across the town. Then we'll go back to talk about the castle. I say it's really got that kind of Knaresborough vibe, you know, of each kind of step brings you a new kind of perspective looking at it. Isn't it pretty? So when the Monschau-Valkenburg descendants died out in the 1350s, the territory then became contested in exactly the kind of inheritance dispute that would triggered wars across Westphalia and then Rhineland in the medieval period. So you got this forever kind of rival members of the same families, and battling, a bit like the War of the Roses in the UK, sort of battling to take a orange sky there, they're gorgeous, battling to kind of take control of these lands, because of course it's not just land. It's the wealth that comes with it, because whenever you've got land, you've got tenants, you've got business owners that are paying, you know, you own the mill, you own the fields, you own the peasant cottages, you know, so you own the fields. So you've got a constant supply of cash coming in that allows you to spend it on fortifying yourself, but also good living as well. So this is about dynastic control. And eventually in the year 1435, Monschau fell to the Duchy of Jülich. Now, I think I'm pronouncing that right, but again, it's very difficult. I'm not a native German speaker, but I think it's Jülich, who extended the castle walls, and he built these heavy ring walls that we're looking at now. So this is sort of post-1435. And again, just look at how solid these buttresses are. I mean, obviously the wall, I'll give you a sense of kind of the height, you know, towering above me. You know, I would say 30 foot high, at least 40 foot maybe. But then these buttress walls. So again, there's absolutely no way that you're going to knock these walls down with anything. Of course, castles became largely redundant once gunpowder came along, because even as strongest walls ever, relentless pounding, you know, with heavy artillery is going to weaken them, and they become just as dangerous to you as they are as effective defence against anybody else. Because obviously, if they fall backwards onto you, you can kill a load of troops with the stones falling. So this is why, you know, the fortified city sort of fell out of favour. Really, is once kind of gunpowder came along, it really was the beginning of the end. But they were damn impressive, weren't they? So under Jülich, the castle wasn't just a local stronghold, it was a border fort, kind of guarding the edge of their duchy against rival powers in Rhineland, Brabant and Westphalia. So it's kind of really important as well to kind of recognise that, you know, when we're talking particularly about kind of Western Central European nations this time, they're not countries as such. You've got sort of city-states, you've kind of got princes that are in control of areas. We don't have the kind of kings and queens model. You know, much of you know, Germany only really becomes a meaningful country probably in the 19th century. You know, Italy, you know, a little bit kind of later still. You know, there's still, you know, France is still very much a country of kind of separate states. You know, so much, and then so many countries that were sort of together by, you know, held together by the Russians. The East lot fell apart, didn't they? Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, you know, because they weren't really countries. So this is kind of what you've got. It's not a case of, you know, it's Germany versus, it's within Germany. You've got, and same with Italy, the city-states of Italy, and the Genoese and so forth. They're all kind of struggling for control, money, trade, you know, access to trade routes, you know, and the revenues that are going to come from this. So you got constant conflict of basically these barons just equipping men to go and kind of fight in their commercial interests. There's nothing especially kind of romantic about this kind of warfare. You know, it's largely just about, you know, I want to control. So something we say about kind of the nice nesting in the modern. This one is obviously a fair bit less modern. It's cottage dating from 1586. Oh, it's Patty Joyce, Patty Preta. Hello, everyone. Patty, good to see you. It says Mrs. John wandering away down, she's never so well. Isn't it lovely, a yellow coloured sky? Do hope you're enjoying the sights and delights of Monschau. So the castle wasn't just guarding the town, it was kind of holding a strategic kind of slice of upland. Upland territory, kind of controlling movement through this Ruhr Valley, asserting the rights of whichever lord had it. So the Limburgs, the Valkenburgs, the Jülichs, or even later Prussia. Look at this tunnel. I love things like this. It just brings history so close that, you know, you touch the stone. Feel out, touch the stone, everybody. It is just, cool. Firstly, it's cool, which is nice on these days. But I mean, this is how, you know, we connect with history, isn't it? Is actually through, we wander through these places, and just nothing's changed. You know, we could be a 16th century soldier on parole, ready for our kind of evening, or maybe we're knocking off. Better still, knocking off for the evening, about to go home, and eat some sausage and beer. Would be much nicer for him, I'm sure, than about to be going on patrol. So when you kind of stand here today, I'll just give you another quick pan across the valley. Hello, Sarah. Lovely to have you with us. So we start to get a real sense now of the town at the bottom. In fact, I'm just going to put that there for one second. Let me get a drink. Oops. Knocking the gimbals, really good idea. There. I tried to put it on the least flat bit of wall in Germany there. Martin's with us as well. Martin, if you do want to sort of jump back, or anybody wants to jump back, we've just kind of been visiting the castle. I'm just about to do the kind of last bit about the castle. We're going to wander down into the kind of town itself. But let's just pan kind of up so you can get a real sense of how impressive this is as a kind of entrance. It's gorgeous, Andy. So where you kind of stand today, you're looking at a fortress that once anchored a kind of contested medieval borderland, a place where kind of geography, politics and ambition collided. And I've lost the gimbal. Just bear with me one sec. I'm just going to redo the gimbal, if I can. Yeah, I've lost the gimbal. Be a short intermission. We go. You evil gimbal, you. So later, when the kind of Monschau expanded, the cloth industry took off, the original castle became too cramped. So they built the second fortress across the valley of the Halle to watch the river and the trade routes. They make sure there's plenty of control. It is so peaceful. It's a so lovely time of day to kind of bring you down here. So you've got two castles facing each other across a narrow gorge. A kind of town so defensible, you needed two fortresses to keep an eye on each other. And over the centuries, the castle, of course, changed hands. The lords of Montjoy, the Duchy of Jülich, the Spanish, the Netherlands, Prussia, Napoleon, and back to Prussia again. Borderlands always have complicated stories. Of course, we're very, very close to the Belgian border here as well. I'm literally about to 10 kilometres or so, not much. So today's quiet. It's a place to come for views, concerts, summer evenings. But the bones of the fortress, I think, still tell you that Monschau was once a place worth defending. A valley that kind of really mattered. And a community that long shaped by geography a long time before tourism arrived. But boy, has tourism arrived now. But nicely seeing it this time in the evening. Obviously people have gone home. It was very, very busy kind of yesterday. And today fairly busy as well. The town's with an umpire band, like a German brass band actually. I tried to film it, but everything I did on Facebook today, I don't know why, it just came out all horrible. And I thought, oh God, I can't tour. But actually, YouTube's absolutely fine up here. Or so I'm guessing it's fine. No one's saying, give me a horrible picture. Look at that for a view. This really is a kind of town of views. Around every corner, you get this other apex. I mean, bearing in mind, if I kind of pan up from here, you know, we've got the medieval castle tower. You know, I come down and then we've got this kind of gateway that's inviting us down into the town. And the famous timbered town of Monschau. So we're going to have a lingering look. Marlena, get your shopping list out. Nice things about Europe. Got the Stadt Monschau. It's the city of Monschau. We've got its crest on the drains, which is kind of nice, isn't it? It's very William Morris-esque, isn't it? Make it beautiful. So good, thank you, Tricia. So Monschau's got over 300 fachwerk houses, and this is remarkable. So the timbered houses, I mean, aren't they pretty? Marlena really is going to be having trouble choosing today, but we will force her at the end to reveal what she's plumped for. So they've got about 300. I kind of sense it was pan back that way. The arch will just come down through. Yeah, most towns in the Eifel region, so this is the Eifel, like the Eiffel Tower, but rather than being able to change Charles Eiffel, it's the Eifel National Park, and rather than two F's, it's one. So E-I-F-E-L. So Eifel, which is the national park that's kind of behind us, really, and kind of runs on for obviously many hundreds of thousands of acres. But kind of most towns in the Eifel, as they call it, or the Rhineland, kind of have a handful of old fachwerk buildings, maybe a street or two. But Monschau has an entire kind of medieval, early modern townscape preserved almost intact. There is a manhole cover, isn't it? I mean, that's what I thought. You know, if you can do a manhole cover, then go for it, really. You know, don't hold back. Do it properly. Isn't it pretty? I had to come up here. I couldn't have not done the castle. There we go. Ah, Natalie. Hello, Natalie. Good to have you on. Okay, so what's the reason then? How has Monschau come to have this plethora, this embarrassment of riches, as they say, of these fabulous old fachwerk buildings? And the reason's kind of simple. Monschau was never industrialised in that kind of destructive way that hit other towns. So a good example of that, it didn't get a railway line blasting through the centre. Huge changes. You know, we forget, obviously, railways brilliant, and they kind of transformed everything and made us kind of richer and more productive. But of course, a lot of things were destroyed in the creating of railways, right? If you live back where visit Monschau. Oh, thank you. Brilliant. I mean, it's wonderful having someone like Michaela on that can give you much more kind of broader kind of context. So thank you. Do keep dipping in. It's absolutely brilliant to add value. It's a wonderful thing about this community. People are just so knowledgeable, also so giving to share their kind of time. So please take a note, scribble down, and even if you've got a virtual tour, rather in-person tour, go and have a look. Because there's lots of places that are on 360s now. If you're not available, do have a look on Google Arts and Culture, and there's about 2,000 museums and wonderful historic buildings and places around the world. You can travel on 360, you know, not stuff that makes you dizzy, you just control it yourself, but you can go visit these wonderful places all over Europe. So you've not got the railways, so that's a big start. Also, you haven't got that mass industrialisation. So again, sort of big factories, in order to be, if you think about the model of industrialisation, obviously urban locations, and so this is when that hasn't happened. Then you get this much more preserved, organic, if you like, cityscape, because nobody's gone, we need to clear space to create kind of factories. It's Susan. The slopes are not to be underestimated, but we're nearly down on the bottom now, so I'm going to have to wait for Mrs. John. Not quite sure where she is, but I think she'll find us. It was impacted, but Monschau wasn't kind of part of that, so consequently the historic core wasn't kind of rebuilt or modernised. So you got a truly authentic perspective. I mean, so many, but Munster, which isn't too far away from here, is a beautiful city, but it's all kind of rebuilt because it was flattened. So, this is the real deal. You really are seeing, an authentic German medieval city. So hopefully that buffering will have passed. When I come to the bottom, I think it was just went through a bit of a narrow valley. I'm just going to stand here for a minute, try and let Mrs. John catch up, or at least kind of sight lines on me, and And you just tell me now if the buffering has passed. I'll just wait for a minute. I'll just take a sip of water. So just let me know if you can just see and hear me. So just so I know, because it's not saying anything on the problem now. I think we just hit a patch. And are we okay now? If somebody just let me know. If all is well, yeah, I think we're about to hit the odd dead spot. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's amazing that I can do this at all in a kind of town of this kind of nature. So good, thank you. So, like I said, I don't know if you missed the kind of last bit, so I'll just kind of repeat that. So the other thing that it escaped was Second World War damage that wasn't kind of prevalent in this area, very, very lightly touched by comparison. So consequently, we're getting a real authentic, beautiful medieval kind of town. So what you're kind of seeing today is a kind of continuous fabric of slate roofs, of kind of narrow timber frames, narrow lanes, steep hillside houses, and a density of fachwerk that's rare even in Germany. So even by kind of German standards, this is a kind of doozy, and it's reflected in the fact, you know, that you know, during the daytime here, you know, it's full with the town square, you know, kind of cafes and everything. They had a German band playing today, but you know, so many motorcyclists coming through, so many cyclists coming through, or on bikes rather. So consequently, you know, in the daytime, it is absolutely not quite rammed, but certainly very, very busy. And of course, the heat doesn't really help either. So it's kind of nice, really, to bring you in this evening when it's much, much quieter. But yeah, just look at this. I'm just doing it deliberately slowly, really, just so you can get a sense. The flag of North Rhine-Westphalia, I think. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. It's certainly everywhere, so I'm guessing that's what it is. But it's just charming, isn't it? I mean, it is a chocolate box and then some. So it's not just a pretty street, really. We need to open up in a minute, so I think we should get a pretty good smooth hit from the rest of it. So in the Rhineland, you've got these lovely timbered places like Bad Münstereifel or Monschau's neighbour Kornlimmenster. But Monschau kind of stands out because the entire centre is coherent. There's no kind of gaps. There's no kind of modern intrusions. There's no post-war kind of concrete around. You've just got a preserved, beautiful valley town that looks like what you're being shown. And deliberately, if it's an ugly building, we'll pan to the side of the road, right? In order to kind of keep the consistent levels high. Here, you're just not doing that. I can literally stand here and turn around, and everywhere you look is the same standard of beauty. You know, there's no, I'm not having to edit anything. I'm literally I'll just pick a route and think, right, we're going to talk about. Because probably you do the shambles, maybe you do the walls, maybe you do around the Minster, but what about the rest of it? How do you actually balance economic development, people's needs to live and work? So it's not just a kind of historical, you're not living in a museum. So, you know, it's not necessarily as easy as all that saying, let's do kind of UNESCO. But that said, if there were a candidate for a whole town of UNESCO, I would say that this would be it. Now, let me just come across the front here. But again, look at these now, we're getting to the kind of grander houses. And obviously why people come here really, not just for any old building, but for the whole ensemble. Look at that, very French style.
Think it's French? Is it?
Oh, sorry, I thought I'd moved the repeat across to next week, but anyway, I apologise for that. So, like the film, a river runs through it, and the river is the Ruhr, spelled R-U-R, so pronounced Ruhr, like poor, Ruhr, yeah? And up here in the Eifel, it's barely more than a kind of fast, bright mountain stream, sort of slipping between these slopes. Look at these for views. This too reminds me of now of Ambleside. You know, we used to go up to the Lake District, and we've done that for a long time, but like those like Ambleside, places like that. So it's really like a kind of mountain stream here, but its story kind of goes quite a long way away into somewhere quite strange. We drove right the way across Belgium yesterday. I mean, literally from one side of Belgium right to the other, and I never saw more than like a pimple on the horizon. But apparently there are uplands in the high fens, around 600 to 700 metres high, not especially high, but that's where this river kind of starts, and it kind of works its way right on. Hello, RM. So you kind of got mist peat bogs, stunted trees, and boardwalks across marshlands as it kind of works its way down to here. But you'd never know it existed if you just did, like I did yesterday, travel Belgium by motorway, because the main road kind of skirts the plateau. So you'd be left, like me, believing erroneously that Belgium was quite literally as flat as a pancake, speaking of which, of course, the waffles in Belgium are really rather good. So if you're going to go to Belgium, a waffle is certainly what you're going to want. So that's where the Ruhr is born, in Belgium, in the peat and the weather of the high fens for dropping into the valley as this lively stream. So let me just give you another sort of shot down there. There are a few water scenes now, but it is the essence of charm. I completely agree. It's you know, it's a million chocolate boxes all at once, isn't it? And tea towels. So as it heads north, the Ruhr gets a working river. You know, they have to kind of earn their keep, don't they? And of course, settlement patterns so much dominated by access to a river. And the other good thing here, of course, as well, is you've got fast-moving water. Remember we telling us about Knaresborough? Fast-moving water, good for textiles. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But it's also good for hygiene, because if you, in times where there's no clean water, as you might say, if people are using the stream in front of us, we've got the Red House. A kind of, that's where you can find me. My PayPal has, because this is something. Because this is something. You know, so Monschau cloth travelled further than your pad, couldn't it? I suppose. Your pad, couldn't it? I suppose. I'll keep walking. Is that? Is that? Can you hear me? It was all okay here earlier on testing, but again, there's a lot of people, so. Merchants. They were innovators. One of them, Johann Heinrich Schleiber, even began pioneering to measure musical pitch. A reminder, the valley produced minds that were both practical and curious. So when you stand outside the Red House today, you're looking at architectural proof of Monschau's prosperity. A merchant dynasty, they built a palace in a narrow valley because their cloth was good enough to conquer Europe. Natural advantage. Second, the climate. Cool, damp air is ideal for spinning and weaving fine wool. It keeps fibre supple and reduces breakages, so the valley's microclimate was a quiet ally. Third, we've got the skill base. By the 17th century, Monschau developed a deep bench of craftsmen, spinners, dyers, weavers, finishers, people who knew how to turn raw wool into high quality cloth. This wasn't a kind of cottage industry, it was expertise passed down through families. Fourth, the Schleiber family were entrepreneurs who understood quality, branding and export markets. Their famous yellow wooden cloth travelled across Europe, Paris, Amsterdam, and they built the Red House as a statement of that confidence. And finally, the location. It feels isolated, Monschau, but it's close enough to Aachen to reach kind of major trade routes. Rural enough for production, urban enough for distribution. So you've got a perfect balance. Put it all together, water, climate, kind of skill and capital, and access, and you have a valley that becomes a textile powerhouse, a place where the river and the loom shaped everything. Now, it's gorgeous, isn't it, the railing? Hopefully it's coming better now. So I didn't want to sort of jump back, but this is the I can't pronounce it, the Evangelical Church, the Protestant parish church, one of the most recognisable buildings in the valley. It stands very close to the centre, by the river, and it's kind of been the spiritual anchor of the town's Protestant community for centuries. The first chapel on this spot was medieval, but the church you're looking at here is mostly 18th century. Rebuilt after a great fire. So there's a big fire in Monschau in 1654, so many of the buildings were rebuilt after that. So that's kind of a date stamp for much of the town. But it's very, very deliberately plain if you think about it compared to the York Minster or any of these very, very elaborate churches that were built for the Catholic faith. The Protestant style was very simple, thick stone walls, simple tower, pale interiors, dark timbers, no gilded altars or baroque ornamental that you find in Catholic churches. It's kind of faith without spectacle, the very kind of mindset of the valley's cloth makers, dyers and merchants. Inside the focus on the pulpit and the word of God, not on decoration. So your layout is practical, almost austere, reflecting a community that valued work and honesty and quiet devotion. So this was a town of craftsmen, not aristocrats, and their church mirrors their lives. So sturdy, CNC built. That's a bit of the castle poking up there between. Isn't that beautiful? Love it. So this chap here, now I don't know, I could be giving you a completely bum steer this, but I have an idea that this guy is kind of a modern iteration of what they call the keeper keller, which is a kind of human link between the worlds. He may have nothing to do with it, but he reminded me of it. So let me tell you about keeper kellers. They were like travelling peddlers, men and women who carried a wooden frame or basket on their backs, and they walked from rural villages of Westphalia into big city markets, especially around Munster and Archam. And they sold kind of whatever people would want bringing in for sale. So obviously dairy goods and products from the villages, bring them into the cities for sale, but also then take back the commodities like salt and so forth that you couldn't easily get in the villages. And pots and pans, ironwork, the sort of things that you kind of need to live. What's kind of really interesting is that they were kind of most revered, the keeper kellers, because they transferred knowledge, information, and particularly news, coming from the cities back into the communities. So you've kind of got a really interesting sort of human sort of tom-toms, as you might say. He has been Yarnborough. I don't know if that's kind of in tribute or just a bit of fun or whatever, but he definitely looks like a keeper keller. He's definitely got that kind of stoical sort of look to him. But as I couldn't swear that's what he is, and I don't know who he is. But that's the thing. So they kind of had this treasured role when they could turn up the keeper kellers. There'd be kind of parties, people kind of celebrate, and obviously they'd be buying and selling. A bit like it's sort of what do you call them? That plastic foodware stuff, Tupperware, like a Tupperware party. A kind of party to sell all the stuff that you kind of brought in. But this idea, of kind of linking people and communities. But as I say, things like salt and spices, metal goods, printed material, you couldn't get in the villages, but most importantly, it was news. So they're kind of cultural carriers. In a region where sort of landscape, isolated communities, the keeper keller sits rural and urban together, and they get villagers informed, supplied, connected. And in Westphalia, they're kind of remembered almost as folk figures, part merchant, part messenger, part lifeline. So the sunlight is going down now. So you're going to quite remember the fuel, wool, timber, and all that comes from the countryside. So the villagers produced, the towns processed, and the cities consumed. And it's a kind of chain as old as Europe itself. So the medieval origins, is a kind of first settlement here. But yeah, towns. Earlier today, this was on that stage there was that brass band that were kind of going through the town. This was kind of thronging with people. You couldn't get a table anywhere, so it is hugely quieter than it was. And Monschau, by the way, was voted Germany's most beautiful small town in 2024, and locals often say it feels like the time has paused here, which is nice, isn't it? And let's get a drink. I'm near the top of the hour, aren't we? Good. What time has flown? So I do think that, I don't know what shop that was, but some of them are not great, some of the names. German doesn't help itself at times. I've lost my train of thought now. Oh yeah, Christmas Town. So of course, you know, it pretty feels like Christmas all year round, doesn't it? But it's become inordinately well known and widely visited for Christmas markets. But to be honest, it kind of looks Christmassy all year round, doesn't it? Some places don't really kind of need decorations; they're already kind of decorated by history. And I would say that this is most definitely one of them. So, what's coming? So food-wise, by the way, in terms of food, obviously, you know, all very, very nice and all in the square, but it's kind of honest food of plain honest folk, really. The food around Monschau matched the kind of mindset of the valley, plain, simple and honest. The same way that kind of Protestant church, sort of plain, simple and honest. It was never a kind of region of kind of country, courtly banquets or elaborate sauces. It's a working landscape, and cloth makers, farmers, foresters, millers, people who needed meals that were warm, filling and straightforward. So you get Eifel cooking here, hearty stews, potatoes, cabbage, smoked meats, rye bread, and dishes built around what the land actually kind of produced. Very local, nothing fancy, nothing decorative, nothing meant to impress. Just solid food that keeps you going through a long winter day or a long day at the loom. One of the staples here is a doppelkuchen, which is a kind of baked potato cake with onions and bacon, crisp on the outside and soft inside. A bit like a sort of potato skins, if you're kind of familiar. Sort of dish that comes from a world where you use what you have and you make it count. There's a minimal kind of wastage, as you might say. You also found kind of sauerbraten, pea soups, buckwheat pancakes, and simple sausages, all the kind of classics of Rhineland Eifel comfort foods. And obviously, if any are on here, you know, or are familiar with, you know, parts of America, you know, where there was, is it Minnesota? What's the brewing place called? Not Minnesota, is it? Anyway, around there, you know, where you had an awful lot of German settlers coming in the 18th and 19th centuries, you know, you've got still a lot of, you know, people are very, very keen on these very, very basic kind of meat and potatoes kind of foods. And of course Frankfurter and everything. So Monschau also famous for mustard, which is famous across the region. And that kind of fits with the local character. It's sharp, straightforward, no nonsense. And very, very nice. I had a bockwurst today with some local mustard on it, and it was absolutely delicious. So the kind of food is shaped by the same values you see in the church and the town. Work first, faith steady, life simple, and meals honest. But that is not to say that it is solely Protestant, because this actually is the Catholic Church, right off the square. And I can't pronounce it. Well, you call it St. Maria somewhere, because I have no idea how to pronounce the next word. But it's the Catholic Church, and it's easy to kind of forget the big Catholics here, because it feels so Protestant in its architecture and mindset. But Monschau has always kind of been a mixed valley community. The cloth makers and the merchants leaned kind of Protestant, and the surrounding villages kind of remained Catholic. So there's sort of slight tension between them. But the church here, kind of right off the square, is a kind of reminder that balance obviously worked. It's a 19th century building, completed in 1863, and it reflects the kind of Catholic revival of that era. So in a minute, which past the kind of doorway, and it's still kind of plain and unadorned compared to medieval Catholic. But compared to sort of contemporary Protestant churches, there's a lot more flourishes. So you can see over here, we've got kind of Christ up on cavalry, which is, yeah, beautifully rendered. Lovely roses down here. Look at this. We saw some of the roses on my tours, don't we? You know, so it is very, very dramatic and, you know, kind of beautiful. The arches, there's more kind of decoration kind of going on. And the layout inside centres on the altar rather than the pulpit. So again, in a church, it's about transubstantiation, isn't it? In Catholics, you know, and about communion. In the Protestant churches, it's more about the preaching and the Word of God and Scripture and so forth. So it's more faith based for Catholic. So the church was built because Monschau's Catholic population grew during the 19th century, partly through migration from the surrounding villages, partly through the shifting borders and political change of the Prussian era. And the old medieval Catholic church had become too small, so the community built a new, confident parish church. And I think the fact that, as I say, they built it right off the town square suggests that there was no lingering tension. People just accepted that it was kind of part of the kind of regional identity was Catholic and Protestant. So together they kind of tell you two things important, really. Is the valley's always been a meeting point. Protestant merchants, Catholic villagers, borderland politics, and kind of community that learn to live side by side. So coming to the end, so I'll just talk for a minute or two about Monschau today, really. So today it's mostly a tourist town. it kind of leans into that gently. The timbered houses, slate roofs, narrow lanes, cafes, mustard shops, hikers, cyclists. It's a place people come to slow down, to wander and to take in the valley. But it still feels lived in, not a stage set. The geography protects it from becoming too commercial. The slopes keep it human-sized. The old textile industry that made Monschau famous is long gone. The dye, the works, the fulling mills, all that failed into the 19th, 20th century as industrial production moved to bigger cities and mechanised factories. And so here, I don't know what the history of this building was, but it's now a photographic gallery. And so typical, you know, of this kind of transition, you know, away from industry into tourism, into culture and so forth. It's kind of repurposing of fabulous places and spaces for art. So kind of what remains is obviously the legacy. The red house still dominates the waterside, the merchant houses, the river infrastructure, and the sense of a town shaped by craft. You can still feel the cloth boom, even if the architecture in the industry itself has largely passed. So we mentioned, obviously, it wasn't badly damaged in the war, so not got that to worry about, but there was some fighting. The Battle of the Bulge, if you're familiar with the Battle of the Bulge, in 1944. That happened pretty near here, but the historic centre was largely spared, which is kind of fantastic. So today, you've got a valley where the castle watches quietly, the Churchill anchors the centre, and the rivers still run fast, and the town lives on mostly on tourism, craft shops, walking trails, its own gentle charm. A place that's going to move from industry to heritage without, I think, losing its identity. And just before I give you a kind of final shot, I'll just pan across and say, that house over there, you're looking at now, is where we're staying, which is pretty fab. A little balcony over by the river, so that's nice. But let's just go for a final shot down here. Apologies it's got wobbly. I think if you scroll back afterwards, often even when it hasn't streamed so well, it's generally recorded well, so you'll be able to watch the bits you missed. And I did sort of go quiet for a while, not really say anything, but nonetheless you'll be able to see what you'd have missed there. But one thing, just before we do finish talking about missing, we had the awful news this week that one of our own has left us, and Little Hales. So just before we finish, I thought it'd be nice for you maybe just to wish Anne well on her journey down the stream, and just take a moment just to reflect on her and this community, and the sadness that we all feel when one of our own is lost. So for the last minute of the tour, I'm going to stay silent. You can just think about Anne, think about our little community, think about loss, but also the important things that keep us together. Thank you, everybody. From me and Mrs. John in Monschau, I'm going to leave you
Auf Wiedersehen.
for the rest of your day. Been an absolute delight. And if I manage to squeeze another tour while we're here, I'll do that. Otherwise, I might just film some footage somewhere, and we'll take it from there. Do some fun.
If we've not melted.
If we're not melted. Okay, lovely to see you. Bye bye.